Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversations. We have our special guest, Joseph Walker, former military vet. How you doing today, Joseph?
Hey, I am doing fantastic, and I'm so glad to be here on the show with you today. I feel like I finally made it now that I'm actually on Coder Conversations.
Man, we're really glad to have you, man. Can you give the audience a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I come from pretty humble beginnings. Um, you know, just born and raised here in Southwest Georgia. Graduated, joined the military. Did 10 years in the service. So my first stint, I did 4 years in the Marines. I got out and I did 6 years in the Army. And once I got out of the military, I took an interest in sales and business development. And, I did a wide range of things from, inside sales executive, car sales, door to door sales. And eventually I became a recruiter. In the latter portion of 2021, that's when I decided to make the pivot and actually get into software engineering.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. You went from the Marines to the Army. What made you switch branches?
Well, that's a great question. I got out. I did my 4 year contract in the Marines. I joined in 2006. I got out in 2010. Now around that time in 2010, that's when there was a significant troop reduction, and I was like 22 at the time, and I got out. I thought I was just gonna conquer the world, and I had all the answers to life. And I was in for a rude awakening. 2010 was a pretty rough time in our country and around the world in general. A lot of people were struggling, and there was a shortage of jobs, and the economy took a drastic downturn. So I found it pretty hard, not only to find work, but also just to find meaning and purpose in my life. Because I signed up when I was 17 years old, and I went straight into the service. That's the only real structure that I really knew as far as professional work. So and then just that level of camaraderie you get in the military is second to none. So I was really missing that, and I wanted to get back in. And so I went knocking back on the Marine Corps' door, and due to the troop reduction, they threw a lot of excuses at me as to why they wouldn't let me back in. So needless to say, I went to the Army recruiting office. And true story, I walked into the office, and the recruiter there, he said, "Don't say anything. Just shut up. Let me guess. Your prior service." And I nod my head and I say, "Yes." And he says, "Let me guess. You're coming from the Marine Corps." And I said, "Yeah, I am coming from the Marines." And he says, "Welcome to the Army." I guess there were a lot of folks coming from the Marines, because the Marine Corps is the smallest branch in the military, right? And there were a lot of people coming from the Marines and trying to, get into other branches. So, I made my home with the Army for 6 years, and that's pretty much how I made the transition. I always tell people when they ask me, like, which branch is better. It really depends on you, but because I have that like just get it done. And I like challenges kind of personality. The Marine Corps is, better suited for me personally. But both those branches really help shape and mold the person I am today. And that's more or less how I wound up transitioning from one to the other. Didn't really plan on doing it, but that's just how it happened.
Gotcha. While you were in the Army or the Marines, did you like deal with technology in any capacity? Did that kind of spark your interest in technology?
So my jobs weren't super technical as far as working directly with technology. However, there were times in which I did actually utilize like a robotic system. I do recall there was a time where I was doing some training for my first deployment, and it was really cool because they had like this new like little robot system that's gonna help troops on the battlefield. And I got like selected to go and like train with it and go through that class. So I thought that was really fascinating. And of course, being overseas, there's different technologies that you utilize on the battlefield to kind of help out with troop movement and helping out with like communication. So, I kind of had like secondhand experience. I was more of a user, if you will, like utilizing the technology versus someone who actually kind of developed or built anything. But it did make me a little bit curious. Uh, but I guess at that time, I never. It's funny growing up, small town Georgia. No one becomes software engineers. No one really talks about, doing that sort of thing. I come from a very hard working class family, and I'm actually the only person in my immediate family that even got a college degree. Last time I checked, and it's just a little associate's degree, but my whole family went crazy when they found out I got an associate's degree. So um, yeah, that really wasn't a thought to get into software or to get into tech,
Mm.
because that just never was presented to me as being an option on the table. So being in the military and working with a little bit of technology and robotics and stuff, it never really crossed my mind that I could be a person that could actually develop or build something of that nature.
Okay, got it. So when did you kind of feel like it was enough with the military, and like what did you transition to upon exiting?
Well, I would say when I was, because I did a total of about 10 years of service, I would say when I was at like the 8.5 year mark, I think that's when I kind of decided that, you know what, I think I just want to go ahead and see what else is out there in the world. Because, like I was telling you earlier, I'm a naturally very curious person. And I like trying to see what else I can do or what I'm capable of accomplishing. So, I was just at a point in my career where I was like a mid-level soldier in the army, and I was almost at what people call the hump. Like you go all the way up the mountain and you get to the peak, and now it's just kind of downhill, so to speak.
Mm.
But I got to that hump, and I was like, I think I want to do something different. And I really wasn't quite sure what that thing would be. And part of my story, I know I published an article on LinkedIn a few weeks back talking about kind of sort of about how I transitioned out. The first time around when I got out the Marines was very rough because I didn't have a plan. But the
Mhm.
second time around, and things were better set up in the military to help veterans transitioning out. And once again, this is in 2016 when I officially, transitioned out the military completely. But I had a better plan moving forward. So that definitely did help, kind of soften the blow as far as getting out. But as far as just looking into technology, that didn't come until maybe about the last year and a half ago.
Okay. So like what was your actual plan upon exiting the military and getting into technology? What resources did the military have for you?
So at that time, it was just a blanket class. It's called like TAPS, and they just pretty much, you go through these classes, and they teach you how to put together a resume. And from what I've seen recently on LinkedIn, they actually kind of go over like how to network and try to like set up a LinkedIn account. So that's good. They're actually doing that because that wasn't there for me back then. But it was just generic stuff. It wasn't anything like specific as far as, hey, if you're looking at getting into a career like this, then you can start, network with these people. You know what? I take that back. I apologize. As a matter of fact, there were some specialized programs, and as a matter of fact, there was a program that a career path that they put me on to like be like an HVAC or a pipe fitter or plumber, and they would allow you to go through the training, get you the certifications needed so that you can actually start working and go through an apprenticeship program. So about 7 years ago, did have specific programs in place. As far as technology is concerned, there weren't any that I'm aware of. However, I do know currently there is for veterans the program called VetTech. I know that's a really popular one, and there may be some other ones that I may not be aware of. I know VetTech for sure is probably like one of the top programs that veterans can utilize to like transition into tech.
So, vet tech, what exactly is that, and what resources do they provide?
Sure. So VetTech is kind of like for a lot of service members when you first join, you get what's called like the post 9/11 GI Bill, and what that GI Bill does is it pays for your tuition. It can cover. It gives you like a stipend to cover your books, and you get what's called like a little allowance. And depending on whatever zip code area or municipality that you live in, you get an allowance in accordance to where you live at. And that allows veterans to go to college, and get a degree in whatever chosen career field. So vet tech is kind of similar, except instead of going to college, it's for a coding boot camp, or it's for maybe cybersecurity or UX design. So it allows you to go and do a coding boot camp. You don't have to worry about paying the 10, 15, $20,000 up front. They cover the cost of that. And some of these boot camps, the Veterans Affairs has to set up that if like they don't get you placed within a certain amount of time, they have to refund the money back to the VA. So a lot of these coding boot camps are incentivized to ensure that they get the veterans placed in a certain time frame upon completing the actual training. So that's essentially what VetTech does. And I've read, but I mean this has been a few months back, and I will have to actually recheck this. But I have read that there may be certain costs associated. If you go maybe the cybersecurity route, then they may have you like paid for like some of the certs or something. But other than that, as far as the software engineer path is concerned, it's totally covered.
Got it.
Do you have to like serve some amount of time for for them to help you out with all this coding boot camps? Like, like you said you serve for 10 years. Like
Mhm.
what if somebody serves for like 2 years or something? Do they still get the same amount, like same help, I guess?
That is an excellent question. So for 2 years, yes. Now I think the actual cutoff time for time in service is 180 days. So I believe anyone who serves and is honorably discharged, well, for within like 6 months or later, then they do actually get the benefits. Not 100% certain, but based on what I've read and what I recall, I'm pretty sure at least 180 days is what's required in order to get the full benefits.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's kind of a huge gap between like getting out of the military and getting your first coding job. How did you learn programming? Did you go to a coding boot camp, university, or?
Yeah, so a lot of people have so many different paths that they take, and it really just depends on your situation. For myself, I kind of had a blend between going a traditional route versus going like a coding boot camp s kind of course. So what the route that I chose is I actually did decide to go to school. I already did have a degree in political science for like the community college. It's like a military community college. So I already had a degree there, and I started looking at software engineering um, December of 2021. So and I already told you that I'm brand new, pretty much to this space. I did not code my first Hello World program until January of 2022. So it's literally been exactly 1 year since I've been actually starting coding and everything. But I devised a plan that looking at my curriculum, if I were to take just 5 courses, in computer science, software engineering, a couple of math courses, and some data structures and algorithms, I would literally be able to have at least my AS and computer science degree in a span of 6 months. So I figured that would be worth it. It would kind of make me a little bit more marketable as I continue my journey as far as learning how to code. So I decided, hey, why not? Let's just go for it. So I decided to kind of go the traditional route, and I went to college and I took the formal courses But I definitely stayed on YouTube. I bought a few Udemy courses. Networked a lot on LinkedIn, which is also how I kind of came across you and coder conversations. And that helped me out a lot as far as just keeping my morale up. Um, and you know, but my big breakthrough was actually a software. It's like it's kind of like a staffing agency slash tech company called Revature, and they
Mm,
have an amazing apprenticeship program. And they've been around for a certain amount of time now. But they have a program where they'll take emerging tech talent, and they will pretty much put them through a boot camp style training. It ranges from maybe 10 to 12 weeks or so, and upon completion of that training, they will actually set up interviews for their specific clients. And upon being selected, you get to actually be a software engineer on that particular project. And those projects can range anywhere from 1 to 2 years. And once you're done with that project, you have that experience that everyone requires on a job application. And you can now take that experience with you and then go apply to other places.
got it. Roger, did you have any questions?
Yeah, with Revature, right? So how do they take you in? Like, do they like do any kind of interview before they take you in?
Correct. So there is what's known as like a technical evaluation. And hey, I want to preface my response by saying this. When I initially did the technical evaluation, they did conduct things a little bit differently. I went through June of last year, so it's been about what 7 months since I went through. Since then, I know a few things have changed. They've changed the length of time that you work there, etc. But as far as just when I went through, there was a technical evaluation. They're gonna assess your knowledge as far as like object oriented programming. They're gonna test a little bit of your knowledge as far as like SQL, data manipulation, maybe a little bit of front end knowledge, but they just kind of get a gauge. And then upon completing that technical evaluation, if you do good enough, then they'll go ahead and they'll allow you to secure a slot in their training. If you have maybe less than favorable remarks on that technical evaluation, they'll reassess and they'll probably put you in like a remedial program. I think it's called like the Spark program, and it's a couple of weeks. I think maybe like 4 weeks, and it kind of is like a refresher, or it kind of helps you learn just the basics of programming enough so that you can retake that technical evaluation. And then once you pass that tech eval, then they allow you to actually pick out like a slot in order to do like the training, which is like 10 to 12 weeks. So the training is pretty awesome. It's phenomenal. They train you on the latest and greatest tech stacks. A caveat would be you do not get to select what tech stack that you learn. That's a really big caveat. But you do learn like the latest and greatest technologies. I'm very thankful because when I went through my college courses, Java is the language that most of my courses were in, and Java happened to be the tech stack that my cohort got trained on. So I lucked up, But yeah, you don't really get to choose. But yeah, it's definitely a great way to actually get your foot in the door.
Do you have to pay for it for the boot camp that they're doing? Like once after the technical interview, you get in and like do you have to pay for that?
Right. So there actually is no upfront cost. They don't, make you pay anything to go through this training. And one thing I will say about the company, they are extremely transparent. But I mean, a lot of what I'm going to say, pretty much everything that I'm going to say is listed on the website. And the recruiter is going to also regurgitate everything that's on the website. But there's no cost up front. Whenever you do go through your training, the training is going to be minimum wage. It's going to be based on wherever you live at in the United States. So, if you live in Georgia and you get selected, you're going to go through that 10 to 12 weeks and you're going to get whatever the minimum wage is in the state of Georgia. If you live in California, it'll be the minimum wage for Cali. But you go through the training, there's no upfront cost. You don't have to pay for any apps, or you don't have to I mean, you gotta have a laptop, you gotta have a computer, of course. But no, other than that, there's no upfront costs. They foot the bill, they pay you, albeit it is minimum wage, but that's kind of incentive to do well so you can get placed on a project sooner than later. But yeah, that's something that's also very unique about their program. No cost, and it's a pretty great apprenticeship.
How many people actually got into a project? Like, let's just say you're like 10 people. Like, how many
Mhm.
people actually got into your client?
Right. So we started out with about 29 people in our cohort. It was probably like high 20s, maybe 25, 27, 29 people. Um, about 15 of us actually made it through the training. Because when I got done with my training, that's when we actually start witnessing a lot of the massive layoffs, and
Mm.
a lot of demand for a lot of clients started to drop off. So it took a little bit longer to get placed, but I know I made sure to keep in contact with a lot of the folks in my cohort. So out of like the 13 of us that actually made it through the training, I would say maybe 7 or 8 of us that I know of got placed. So maybe a little bit higher than 50%, probably higher than that. But I know for sure at least half of us, got placed, like 6 or 7 out of 13 for sure.
That's pretty nice. Like, okay, so I wanted to ask you about the vet tech part of the equation. Did they pay you for that associates that you were working towards?
No. So
No? Okay.
yeah, because the company, they require that's a great question. So Revature, they do require you have a degree prior to being able to actually work as a software engineer for the company. So yeah, that is something else I do want to put out there. You do need to have a degree. I didn't have a 4-year degree, but I did have like a 2-year associate. So at the time, that was good enough. But you do need to have a degree in order to actually, go through the training. And it doesn't matter what the degree is. Doesn't have to be computer science, but you do have to have like some degree to, or to actually attend the training.
So yeah, we
Mm.
got a couple of questions from the audience. Brandon
Okay.
asked, do you get paid while in training? And what's the pay like after training and once you're assigned to a project?
Great. Cool. So yeah, when you go through the training, it is going to be minimum wage. So it's going to depend on where you live at. So, whatever state you are, whatever the minimum wage is for your state, that's the amount you're going to be making throughout the duration of your training. And as far as getting on a project, it really varies as far as what the salary is. And I don't want to give out the wrong information because I know the contract did change a few months back. So it would be best to check with a recruiter, and they can actually give you the updated information. But there is a salary range, like your first year, you make a certain amount. Then your second year, you get a substantial raise. And I had a 2-year contract. It's no longer a 2-year contract, which is why I would say check with a recruiter because the information I have is kind of outdated. But if I were to sign on for additional year after the end of my current contract, you get another bump or another increase, or you can just go and take your skills and your experience and go work elsewhere. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yep, most definitely, man. So you kind of mentioned some of the mental challenges, and I know a lot of the people watching, they may be getting out of the military, and they're probably wondering, like, how do you get over not feeling like you can learn enough to become a coder, and when you had to deal with all the rejection that may come from all of these interviews, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. And everyone has their own coping mechanisms, but I would just say if you served in the military, whether it be active duty, whether it's reserve or National Guard component, at the end of the day, you had to prove at some point in your life that you have mental toughness, that you have grit, because you had to go through physical challenges. You had to utilize teamwork. You had to be mentally tough to get through basic and go through all the hardships associated with being in the military. Life is hard, life is hard. Everyone has their own journeys, struggles and vices. But going through the military, it's a special type of camaraderie associated with it. And there's some unique challenges that we face. So just knowing that you made it through that is in your in your rear view mirror, you need to give yourself a lot more credit. As far as just dealing with imposter syndrome, we all deal with it. It doesn't matter what level you get to. From what I hear from more senior level engineers, everyone deals with it. Obviously, I'm not a senior level engineer. I'm just a new kid on the block. But from day one, which was last January of last year till today, I struggle with what they say imposter syndrome. And I want to say this too. I may be a little weird, but I don't really like the word imposter syndrome. I know like people say it at the time, but I kind of associate the word imposter with a person who does not belong. And I don't, it just doesn't sit right with me to say I have imposter syndrome. Am I facing challenges every day? Absolutely. Do I know everything there is to know? Nope. And I probably never will. But, I feel like I worked really hard to be where I am. I worked extremely hard to create the position that I'm currently in. And the last thing that I would ever consider myself to be is an imposter. But I do acknowledge I have challenges. The road is tough. The road is hard. It's paved with a lot of obstacles. And you just got to bite down. You got to stay patient with the process, stay patient with yourself, and just do the absolute best that you can. That's just really the best advice I can give. Take it one day at a time. Sometimes you got to take it 1 hour at a time. But don't be too tough on yourself. Get up, get some air, walk around. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, you sit at your desk for hours trying to figure out a bug or a defect. And then you just say, screw it. You get up, close your laptop, walk around for like an hour. You come back and boom, you got it. So, people should, including myself, this isn't just advice for whoever's watching this live or watching the replay. This is advice for myself. Don't be so hard on yourself. This is very important. You're probably really passionate about it, but you got to give yourself some credit, and don't be so hard on yourself. You're not an imposter. You deserve everything that you're striving towards. And, you just got to really embrace your process.
Most definitely. So yeah, we have another question from a longtime guest. He asked, how did you translate your military experience to civilian life, and what were some of the challenges, and what advice could you provide to other veterans that's trying to do the same thing?
It's a good question. Yeah, I like that question. I would say one of my biggest selling points whenever I was doing and conducting myself in interviews, it would be really the key point of working in a team environment and problem solving under pressure. Those are some of the key like buzzwords and the key things I would really focus on. I think, especially myself included, but a lot of veterans, especially the longer you're in, you get so used to just throwing around the jargon and the terminology. And outside of the military, no one knows what that is. So it's hard. It's really hard to figure out how you can take what you did and translate it into something that, an employer can look at, read, and it makes sense and it's a value add. So, whatever it was that you did do in the military, just know you definitely had to work under pressure. You had to problem solve, and you had to utilize your teamwork. In addition to problem solving abilities, like for me in the military, in the Marines, I was infantry, and in the Army, I was a tank gunner. So, it's like there's not really an equivalent job for that in the civilian world. So, I just kind of, I really just had to figure out how to really take just the best bullet points and just some of the core aspects of that job as far as being patient, solving a lot of problems, being under a lot of pressure, and really underscore those components in a resume and also when I'm actually conducting an interview. So that's really the best advice I can give regarding that.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
The yeah,
oh yeah, go ahead, Roger.
yeah. So the current active military people, like what advice can you give them if they want to transition into tech, like right after, they leave, they get discharged, I guess. Yeah.
Start networking now. Definitely network. Definitely start working on your resume. Start branching out, reaching out. Go through coding, learn what your resources are. Check out the VetTech program. Be super proactive. It really does hurt my heart when I reach out to my friends who are currently active duty, and several of them are at a more senior level. And I say, hey, you should get on LinkedIn, man. This is where it's at. You should network. You start building up that network, and I'll be more than happy to, be like a warm contact and introduce you. And they put it off. They say, no, I don't have to do that. It's really hard because you're so used to just that structured environment, and like I said, a lot of them are kind of sort of at like the top of the food chain, or they're getting there. So it's kind of hard to really shift your paradigm into, hey, I need to start networking. I need to start reaching out to people and building up my brand and promoting myself and translating what I've done up to this point into viable bullet options, or value adds in the civilian sector. So that's really hard, but be super proactive. Seek counsel. Seek counsel when you go through TAPS. Seek counsel for people who are currently already transitioned, who may have massive success in the industry or in the field that you're currently looking at getting into. The biggest thing is just having a plan and also making sure that you have a good support system that has your back, whether it be your spouse, whether it be, so a couple of buddies who've already transitioned, or other veterans who you just network with, such as myself. I'm more than happy to connect with anyone who's trying to transition because I know what that feels like. And, sometimes it can be a very rough transition. And I kind of even oftentimes I even say, as a veteran, that's, been in and out twice, sometimes you never really fully transition out, there's still kind of that void a lot of times, so it's really important that once you get out of the military, whether you're active duty, National Guard, Reserve, there's going to be a void. And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be psychologically prepared for that void. And you have to understand you need to fill that void. And when I say void, I mean that sense of duty, that sense of purpose, that sense of having a mission to get ready for. Because you spend a lot of your life, a huge chunk of your life, getting ready for the next mission. Once again, I joined when I was 17. I didn't get out till I was 28. So getting out and not having a mission, it was almost traumatic. So you got to have a mission. You got to have something that you're striving towards, and making sure that you have a support system in place, and also having a plan that's going to ensure that you're going to be successful.
Got it. Yeah, you mentioned networking as one of the most important things they can do to prepare themselves. What are some tangible ways that they can network to effectively be able to get these job interviews?
Well, I would definitely say, being live on like social platforms such as LinkedIn, definitely reaching out, connecting with people, but also just creating content and also sharing your journey. And, that's definitely something that I myself am really working hard on. I want to actually ensure that I'm posting more consistently on LinkedIn And I know that's something I kind of mentioned, prior to starting up this the podcast. But I used to consistently post on LinkedIn, and it's amazing with LinkedIn, the amount of organic reach you can get, and just by posting consistently about your journey, going into tech and transitioning out in the military, you have no idea who's going to come across your content or who's going to share your content, and the right person's going to come across it, and then they can connect you to your next job. So, some tangibles, definitely just letting people know you're here, let people know that you exist, and share your journey. Like what I'm doing now. I've never spoken about my journey into tech or transitioning out in the military. I never have. I've done videos and I've written content, blogs and whatnot, but I never really touched on my military journey and transitioning and being interested in getting into tech. So it's really important to share it because number one, sharing your story is very powerful. It has a tremendous impact on other people who may need to hear your story at a particular rough spot in their life. But it also puts you on the radar of other people that you may be able to collaborate with in the future.
Most definitely. Um, Eric had a couple of more questions. He said, I see opportunities for companies to hire more veterans as part of their DEI diversity. What do you think can be done to improve this? He said, I've been fortunate to have worked with many veterans and feel that they're overlooked. And his other question was, what opportunities in the private sector do you see for veterans or for those currently serving?
Okay. Um, well, the first part of the question, he was, I guess he was asking, well, more companies looking to actually add more veterans, or what's the value add to that?
Yeah, what opportunities for companies to hire more veterans as part of their DEI? Like, let me see. I see opportunities for companies to hire more veterans as part of their DEI diversity. What do you think can be done to improve this? So, I
Okay.
guess. hmm
Yeah, well, I do know. I've been made aware of a few organizations that are actually taking the initiative to get more veterans hired. When I first got out, I went to like the yellow pages. It was like the earlier 2000s, so it still kind of was still a thing back then. And I remember going through the yellow pages, and there were actual organizations that were focused on placing veterans. So there are organizations. I think one of the more prominent ones is like uh, vets for hire, or vets. I don't want to get the name wrong, but I do know, like in my last article, I did actually mention them. So if you actually go to my profile and check the article I made about vets and tech, it should name one of those organizations. But there's a lot more organizations popping up, by veterans, for veterans, to do exactly that, which is get more veterans placed in jobs, placed in roles, and most importantly, get them into tech. I mean, I'm sorry. What was the second part of the question?
Sure. What opportunities in the private sector do you see for veterans or for those currently serving?
Oh wow, lots of opportunity. Because we bring that factor of having that mental toughness. We know what it's like to have to hit tough deadlines and work under pressure. Sometimes work in a, well, I guess, hostile environment, but hopefully you're not working in a hostile environment nowadays. You know, but we bring that X factor, that leadership capability, the ability to manage and multitask. So I see a plethora of opportunity for veterans in the private sector. And it's just, like I said, a matter of taking actionable steps to ensure that you put yourself out there. Are you networking? Are you putting out content? Are you sharing your story? Are you sharing your journey? Like, it may not seem like much to say,
Mhm.
create a LinkedIn post, say, hello, world, I'm making my first program, and it's, gonna be whatever, a to-do app. And I don't know what I'm doing, but it's gonna be fun. I mean, people really do underestimate how powerful sharing your journey is. It may
Mhm.
not seem like much to you because, I'm new to this and, I'm not a senior developer and I haven't built a ton of things. So who's going to care or listen? But that is so powerful to document what you're doing just because, honestly, think about it. If you are an employer and you're looking to hire someone, you got the one person and they have zero presence. There's no digital forensics on this person. And then you got this other person, and yeah, they've only been, programming for about 6 months. But, you see a couple of contributions on their GitHub. You see that they're posting, once or twice a week about their journey. You can see that they're taking the initiative to learn about how to program, and they're actively trying to get better and they're actively networking. Who do you really want on your team, right? Who do you think is going to be a better fit? So I try to, I understand looking at it from the eyes of a person who is brand new because I'm still brand new, but I also see the value in thinking if I'm an employer and I'm looking at who do I want to bring on board to my team, I think about marketability as well. And what are some things that I can do to make myself more distinguished from the rest of the competition? So, I keep that in mind. And I say just that would be the best thing to do in order to stand out and get into any kind of role that you're looking to pursue.
Yeah, I want to talk about the marketability point too. It's because like whenever a recruiter or a hiring manager is looking at you, all they know is, oh, this is just Joseph and this is his resume. He doesn't know what you're working on. He doesn't know what things you can and you can't do until you get the interview. But for you to get the interview, he needs to know what you know. So it's like a cycle. So you need to put the content out there so they know that, hey, this guy knows this. He's actively working on, Java, all these languages. So at least I like call him to the interview. If he doesn't know anything, if it, like basically it's a mark, you have to market yourself.
Yep.
Hiring, like all this networking and everything is always market. You have to market yourself. You have to be the guy who's out there, who's putting out the most content. Even though you don't have deep knowledge in few things, it's better to put yourself out there because people know that you're there. If they don't know you don't exist, they're not going to look for you. They have to know that you exist and you know these things for them to hire you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We asked you a ton of questions, man. Do you have any questions for us?
Ooh. Wow. Well, I would like to know what inspired you to actually launch this podcast, Coder Conversations, and really, try to take your branding to the next level and create a platform here in the LinkedIn space. Well, what inspired you to do that?
Sure, man. There was several reasons. You know, me and my friend Brian, he's come on the show a couple of times way back. We used to always talk about like entrepreneurship and finding that next opportunity because like as you can see now, man, with inflation, it's going through the roof. So you might have gotten a big raise, but it's just wiped out because everything's more expensive. So I don't necessarily ever feel like you're gonna get ahead just by being in corporate America alone. So you got to start planning and having side opportunities. You have to do something with that money when it comes in, or slowly but surely. A lot of people are headed towards poverty. They're really struggling now, and as you can see, a lot of these corporations, they don't really value us that much because it ultimately comes down to the bottom line.
Mhm.
Microsoft just laid off 10,000. My timeline was nothing but people who got laid off, you know. So, you can make a very good salary in this industry, but you also have to be aware, like, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to invest it. And, there's another big problem is honestly in the black social media dialogue, if you go on YouTube and all of this and that, like the dialogue really isn't that helpful. Like I see this is just me being truthful. I see like a lot of the black male YouTubers arguing and fighting amongst each other, and there's not a lot of talk about stuff that's really going to help somebody out. You know what I mean? You know, I love sports, but us talking about sports all day, it's not gonna help any of us out in our career. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can consume that in moderation, but you have to have an alternative that people can consume that's actually going to help them out. So, you know, when you combine a lot of these factors, you know, it really made sense for me to just go ahead and do what I said I was going to do. You know, it's easy to sit around and talk about it all day. Like, yeah, I'm gonna start a podcast. This guy on YouTube, he's making $1 million opening packages. Why can't I do that? And you know, how do I know I can't blow something up? You know, I have to try. You know, and you know, uh, me and Terrence, we started putting out a few episodes, and we interviewed Roger early on, and you know, yeah, he really liked what he saw. You know, we liked what we saw in him. We brought him on, so you know, it's been a really interesting journey, man. The next step is really, you know, improving the branding in a lot of ways. So if you watch the early episode, you can see the camera look, you know, the camera quality wasn't good. So we invested in cameras. Audio wasn't that great. You know, invested in audio equipment. We're really making a move to get more professional, improve the marketing, get more visibility. And, you know, once you're able to present that professional product in front of a wide audience, that really opens up a lot of opportunities. So, say for example, if we get 1 million subscribers, that allows us the opportunity to, you know, maybe sell merchandise, T-shirts. We're able to help a lot of people. You know, I know you remember Brian Pulliam. We interviewed him a couple of times. You know, he has a lot of excellent advice. We're actually able to help out, you know, guys who are trying to get their coaching career started by giving them that visibility. You know what I mean? And another thing that I also want to do is, I know a lot of people are struggling. You know, some of my friends are struggling. I want to be in a position where, like, if they need a little extra money, I'm able to employ them and say, "Hey, man, you know, help me out on this podcast. Give you a little extra money." You know, so there's several reasons. And yeah, what about you, Roger? What made you want to come aboard?
Ah, okay. Honestly, like when I first commented on your LinkedIn post, that's how I came onto the podcast. I had nothing going on in my life. I was just like cruising through my life. Then I was like, okay, let me just comment, let me be on the podcast. There's uh I felt like I needed some kind of change. I needed to do something else. So I was like, okay, let me be on the podcast. And once I was on the podcast, I felt like I like how it was going on. I felt like I gained a lot of knowledge. And even though I'm like basically like I have 2 years of experience, but I can give knowledge back to people. And I'm here to learn from others and also maybe help out others at the same time. I may not have like, I may not giving the knowledge, giving the knowledge that I got from others. I'm learning in the sense like I'm growing a lot. Like every interview that I've been through, like there is something to grow, there is something to learn, because software development is not about just like one race or one gender or one person doing everything. You need innovation, you need other people's opinion, you need different people to come on, you need to see from everybody's perspective on how they look at software development and what they learn, and you learn through their experiences and you grow. And that has helped me out a lot even at my work. So that's the reason like I keep on coming over here. Maybe I can help somebody out and also help myself at the same time.
Yeah, great answer, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And like this podcast, like I said, I think this may be one of maybe two podcasts that I may actually, when I see a notification, I click it, because this podcast is, especially I love it when, you and Terrence, you guys come on and, you just talk about what's going on in the news about open, chat GPT, open AI, just all the things going on in the world, the massive layoffs and whatnot. It's just nice. It's just like a nice space. You just hop on and be able to actually, catch up on what's going on. Also a source of motivation and kind of like a recharge, if you will. So I definitely do appreciate what you're doing in this space. And you're absolutely right. I 100% agree that a lot of the dialogue in the Black community, it isn't really conducive towards better outcomes that we should be seeking. And just coming up, there really wasn't much encouragement to
Yeah.
become an engineer or an attorney. It's just be an entertainer, or a musician, or
Yeah.
go into sports, which is fine, like you said, perfectly fine. But we can also be engineers and attorneys and doctors, and things of that nature. And it's really great to, once you're in that position, show people that it's possible. And I mean, that's really just the biggest message that I eventually want to also start, showing people, is that we can do it, and we're here, and there's plenty of room for a lot of us.
Absolutely, man. I love the fact that, like people of all colors and races are able to come on here and collaborate and, spread knowledge, But yeah, going back to your point of, the Black community, man, growing up, especially in the 90s, what we saw on TV was gang banging, being a player, all of that, being an entertainer, basketball player. And realistically, man, it seemed like you get more celebrated if you was coming out of prison and graduating. Uh, there's all kinds of love, accolades, and things of that nature for people getting in trouble versus people who are doing the right thing. So, you have to be strong mentally to not fall into those traps. So that's kind of like one of the things I also wanted to do was provide more images of things you can aspire to. Like, they see me, you, Raja. It's like, okay, we could do this too, you know, and more than seeing it, we're literally giving them the tangible path to it. Like we've done it. Like and one of the biggest things for me, man, I was making $11 an hour until I was 30 years old. I was 30, living in Killeen, really small town. I was stuck living with my parents, living under the poverty line. I had to file taxes, and I did have my degree in accounting, but there was no opportunities in that town. So just by me studying programming and moving to DFW, much bigger city, in 6.5 years, I was able to, get well into the six figures, total compensation. If you're taking everything into account, I'm making over 200K a year. So going from under the poverty line to that in 6.5 years. And I'm trying to tell everybody I'm not anything super special. I'm not like a super genius. The one thing God blessed me with is a hard work ethic and being persistent. Like you keep going, you might fail. You look at what happened. Why did you fail? Then you adjust. You just do this over and over and over until you get the results that you're trying to achieve. And that's one of the big messages I want to put out there. It's not about being a super genius. It's about being persistent, enduring until the end.
That's right, man. Persistence beats resistance. I mean, one of the biggest messages that whenever I connect with people, and and I'm pretty sure this happens to you a lot more often. But when people reach out and they say, "Hey, you have any advice as far as how they get into tech?" I ask them a few questions about what they're trying to do, what's their time frame, but I always make sure that I always include, whatever you do, don't quit. Do not give up. Only way you're not gonna make it in is if you quit. It's
Yeah,
gonna be hard, but it's gonna be well worth it.
exactly. And I know Roger can attest to this. Like there's times where the problems seem like they're insurmountable. Sometimes it seems like there's nobody that's going to help you out, and the problem is just on you. You're stuck with it. And
Uh,
like you mentioned, sometimes you might have to walk away, but if you keep at it, somehow the answer just comes to you.
Mhm.
Honestly, like from what I've seen from all these interviews, like what other people can get from all these interviews is that anybody can get into tech. Like honestly, like you deserve it. If somebody is trying to transition into tech, you deserve it. Don't think that, hey, like I can't make it. There are probably like millions of people just like you who think the same way. If you think you can't make it, you're not gonna make it. Just tell yourself that you deserve it, and watch all these videos, and you have seen people from every walks of life get into tech. You can get into tech, and also tech needs you. They need different people, because if the same people stay there, you're not going to get any innovation. You're not going to, like, tech is not going to go to extreme lengths without other people actually getting into these tech spaces, because they bring a different perspective. Every person that you meet, if it's a different race, different gender, like all kinds of people, they bring a different perspective to your team or to your company, and that pushes like technology to its extremes.
Most definitely. And I got one more point to make on that. The big thing about this industry is a mental game. It's you have to learn how to control your psychology. If you talk to most of us who got in hundreds of interviews, nonstop interviews, round after round after round, it's nonstop failure. But the person that got the job was the one that just didn't quit. They just took the knowledge from that failure, uh, you know, got rid of the bad points, took the good points, strengthened that, and try it again. Like each failure literally moves you closer towards success if you don't quit. I believe like a lot of times formal education kind of teaches us the wrong thing. Like it teaches us if you fail, you're bad. You need to be held back. You're stupid. Or you know what I mean? It teaches us to fear failure, whereas in real life, failure is part of the process. It's a stepping stone. You need to learn how to deal with failure and grow from it, but it's literally what's going to push you towards success. If you feel if you always stay in the safe zone, if you always stay away from failure, you're never going to grow.
Yeah, 1000%, 1000%. And one thing that I've definitely have learned is everything that you want in life is outside of your comfort zone. And just to piggyback off of what you said regarding fear, I know people they have like all these little acronyms that they create for fear, like fear everything and run, or forget everything and rise. People like kind of play with different acronyms. But my take on fear is you need to kind of learn how to flip it. And what I mean is, fear is real. There's no getting around that. We all have fear. We all experience it, whether it's asking for a promotion or getting ready for a job interview. But my take is understand that you have fear, embrace the fear, but you have to kind of flip your perspective of that fear. Because yeah, it's scary to be going into a job interview and you hope that you don't screw it up or you say the wrong thing. But instead of being fearful of that, think about being afraid of what will happen if you don't take the interview, if you don't try to take the action to change or pivot into a different industry and change the entire trajectory of your life. What will happen if you don't do that? That's what you should be afraid of. So when it comes to looking at the rejections or screwing something up in an interview, that sucks. I get it. But you need to be fearful of what will happen if you don't take the action, if you don't ask for the promotion, if you don't try to break into tech, if you quit and you stay where you are, what's going to happen to you, your family, and the entire trajectory of your entire life. So fear is great. You should embrace it, but you just need to look at fear from the right perspective.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I like this quote which says, regret is worse than rejection. If you are going to change something, like, let's just say you don't want to do the boot camp, you change it, it's okay, but do not regret it though. Because once you start regretting, it's going to get much worse than you actually getting all those rejections from those companies.
Exactly, man. And fear of rejection, that's a huge impediment for us to really make progress. We often undervalue ourselves. Like, say, for example, you want to negotiate your salary. A lot of times we're going to go for a lower number because, oh, I don't want to be rejected. Like we imagine that the company is going to do something other than just say no. You know what I mean? So we leave a lot of money on the table. We leave a lot of opportunities on the table because fear combined with that picture of rejection, it makes us take the safe route. And sometimes, man, I think if you really want to make progress, you have to be bold and take that risk. You have to jump into the danger a little bit. And what's the worst that can happen? Oh no, you know what I mean? Like we were actually able to get some of the bigger interviews on this platform just by going out and asking somebody. Like, why would Kyle Simpson come on the platform and we have 25 subscribers? You know, we just reached out and asked them. So sometimes you just got to be bold. And if somebody says no, I've been told no a lot of times. I just forget about it and I just focus on the yeses.
Mhm. Yep. Each no gets you that much closer to that one yes.
Exactly. Man, where do you see your future going? Like maybe 4 or 5 years from now, and what are some of the side ventures you are looking into?
Well, as far as I guess side ventures, one thing I do want to do, I did mention, prior to starting, this podcast, I did some work in the finance vertical, and I would like to get back to really blogging. I want to actually launch a new blog later on in this year, so I definitely do look forward to that because I love to write and just curate content in that medium. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Um, and I also do want to get back into creating videos as another form of content. I do have a YouTube channel that's been lying dormant for like the past year and a half. So I want to look forward to blowing out the cobwebs on that and getting that revamped. But as far as career trajectory in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I would say my view is kind of flexible. My current role, I'm definitely growing, getting better every single day. Definitely a lot of challenges, but that's to be expected. But I think I'm not really going to, I guess, truly assess what direction I want to go till maybe around like maybe the year mark. And that way I can kind of reassess, the journey and kind of figure out where to go from there. Obviously, I want to do bigger and better things. And I will say this: I am very intrigued by quantum computing. I think that's very interesting. Just having my eyes, on the quantum space. So I know I did tell you that I was looking at going into science. I was looking at becoming like a theoretical astrophysicist. I thought that would be really cool to do until I discovered it would take like 7 to 10 years minimum. And then I'm like, I think I need to go a different route. So, I got into like computer science in college and, software engineer. But I still am very much interested in quantum computing and how that's coming along and how that's developing. So, maybe doing something in that vertical, that niche. But I guess time will tell. So hopefully I'll come back on the show, in the near future and we can circle back around and see where I'm at then.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Feel free to stop by anytime. But yeah, man, Roger, did you have any closing thoughts? All right, man. We
My
definitely appreciate you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, my only thought is like don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Like Joseph got out, like like you got out. Like there are a lot of other people who got out too. So if anyone's watching this and they're trying to get into tech, do it. Jump into that ocean.
And yeah, if any of the viewers have any questions for any of y'all, are they able to reach out to y'all on LinkedIn or email?
Yeah, LinkedIn is perfect. Hit me up on LinkedIn. That's going to be the number one easiest way to get in contact with me, whether you just want to just reach out, connect, coffee chat. You got an idea for collaboration. Like my mom and my sister or my family member, they'll text me. Like, how come you're not answering the phone? I'm like, hey, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Like, that's where I'm at. So LinkedIn, that's the place to be. Reach out to me, hit me up in the DM and yeah, we can converse.
All right, man. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. We appreciate you for coming on, and yeah, we'll definitely have you back. All
Yeah,
right.
well, hey, I look forward to it, man. It was so great being, on Coda Conversations, and this is my podcast debut, so I had a great time.
Oh man, you did a great job. We'll catch everybody next time.